Can this Mac Mini from 2012, which is an 8-year-old Mac Mini, still be used in 2020? Let's find out. What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the Decoded YouTube channel. Recently, I was gifted a 2012 edition of the Mac Mini for Christmas this year. Now, right out of the box, this machine just really wasn't up to the tasks of really anything in 2020, let alone doing the kind of things that I would want to do on this Mac Mini, such as video editing or even basic video streaming on YouTube or whatever source you use to stream on. With the i5 dual-core processor inside this Mac Mini, as well as the measly 4 gigabytes of DDR3 RAM at 1600 megahertz within the machine that I was gifted, the overall performance was just, needless to say, this is better as a paperweight than as an actual computer. Now, this wasn't a gift that my family spontaneously decided to purchase for me as a sick joke. It was actually one that I sent them via an Amazon link for them to purchase for me as the only gift that I would receive, because it's still kind of expensive at around 300 bucks. This is still a decent machine, but you would have to do some upgrades. So that is what this video is going to be about. Let's see if some simple upgrades of around $80 in total can take this ancient machine from 8 years ago and make it viable in 2020. But before we get this video started, and if you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button as well as the bell icon to the right of it to be notified whenever I do post new videos like the one you are watching today. And if you enjoy the video, don't forget to leave it a thumbs up to let me know to keep posting videos like the one you're watching. The main reason I asked for this 2012 edition of the Mac Mini rather than a newer model such as the 2018 one that has just recently come out, I guess that's not recent anymore, that's about 2 years ago, but the newest model of the Mac Mini is because Apple's ecosystem actually costs quite a few dollars to get into, but Apple actually offers some software that can help me break the restraints of using Adobe products that are subscription based to do my editing and motion graphics such as Final Cut Pro and Apple Motion. That was my main reason that maybe I can try to utilize an older 8-year-old machine such as the Mac Mini and try and get it up to speed for what I need to do with it. The problem with this Mac Mini is actually the hardware inside of it is just obsolete and needs to be updated a bit for it to run and be more efficient in 2020. So that's like the main thing in this video, is to see if I can actually get this thing to be updated and upgraded to be used for even just basic web surfing and video watching on YouTube or whatever streaming service you use, and also to see if it can work with Final Cut Pro and actually export in a decent amount of time and allow for scrubbing through the timeline, whatever else I need in Final Cut Pro. That is the main thing I wanted to use this Mac Mini for, so hopefully I can get it to work with what I needed to do. The nice thing about this 2012 Mac Mini is it's one of the last Macs that you can actually upgrade things such as the solid state drive and the RAM. Now, I know the 2018 rendition of the Mac Mini says that, or people say that you can actually change the RAM inside of it, but the solid state drive that comes with that 2018 Mac Mini is soldered in, so therefore it is not totally upgradable in the sense of what the 2012 Mac Mini can be upgraded to. The first thing I noticed when I actually loaded into the Mac Mini for the first time was the boot times were horrendous. I mean, talking about like 2 to 3 minutes from cold boot to actually being able to enter in a password to log into the Mac. Not only that, but once I log in, everything would hang and then be unresponsive at times. That's just not okay. This was due to the fact that inside, as the internal storage within this machine was an Seagate 500 gigabyte hard drive with a rating of only 5400 RPM. It's just slow, and really, why are hard drives even a thing anymore if solid state drives are so cheap and readily available for end users to purchase? With that being said, I decided to switch out the old hard drive to a newer solid state drive, a 240 gigabyte PNY solid state drive at that, from my local Best Buy for only 27 bucks. This Mac Mini began to run like it should. Read and write times were improved, the boot times were decreased, and there was no longer that thing of hanging whenever I would actually log in to the OS system, and I'd have to wait a minute for everything to just kind of catch up with itself. So just replacing the solid state drive really made a huge impact overall on the user experience for this 8-year-old Mac Mini. Now I could have went with a larger solid state drive, say maybe a 500 gigabyte or even 1 terabyte, since they are relatively cheap right now. But for what I'm going to use this machine for, and the fact that I utilize OneDrive for cross-platform editing with my PC as well as my Mac now, there was no need to go above 240 gigabytes because the only applications on this machine are not taking up that much space, as well as just having the OS system running. The 240 gigabytes were perfectly fine. I want to note that changing out the hard drive for a solid state drive will require a set of Torx wrenches or Torx screwdriver set, and I have provided a link for those down below the video, as well as a tutorial video on actually how to get the job done of swapping out your hard drive for a new solid state drive from Otherworld Computing. These guys are great and know what they're doing, so make sure to check out that tutorial if you are deciding to swap out your hard drive in your 2012 Mac Mini and replace it with a newer solid state drive. So for just upgrading the hard drive to a solid state drive, I noticed everything was just working much better. I could go and surf the web without any lagging or hanging when I'm loading into Safari. Also, opening up applications ran just fine. So for the end users that are just going to use this machine for doing exactly what I just said, surfing the web, maybe checking email, responding to emails, and just light applications, this is really all you need. There's nothing else you have to upgrade, and the 4 gigabytes of RAM that came with my Mac Mini from 2012 would have been just fine. But if you're like me and maybe wanted to upgrade the RAM for, say, maybe editing some 1080p videos, you probably should check this out. The problem with the Mac Minis and my model, the Mac Mini from 2012, is that they utilize integrated graphics and don't have a dedicated GPU. So the CPU is the thing that's doing all the graphic processing. Therefore, the RAM within your build that is not being utilized actually gets used as video RAM or VRAM. Therefore, having more RAM within this build and upgrading it to the max capacity for the 2012 Mac Mini, which is 16 gigabytes of DDR3 1600 megahertz, I believe that's what it is, will help out tremendously with things such as using Final Cut Pro, because it is a little bit more GPU dependent than, say, Premiere is within the video editing space. And that's exactly what I did. I decided to upgrade the RAM from 4 gigabytes, which was the base that I received with this Mac Mini from 2012, all the way up to 16 gigabytes of DDR3 1600 megahertz RAM. And upgrading to the max capacity of 16 gigabytes of DDR3 RAM within this 2012 Mac Mini only cost me about $42. And I provided a link to the actual RAM kit I used for my 2012 Mac Mini down below the video, and everything just seemed to work really flawlessly within Final Cut Pro once I actually upgraded the RAM to the max capacity of 16 gigabytes. Scrubbing through a 1080p timeline once I upgraded the RAM to the max capacity was no longer an issue, and I could do so at ease, as well as importing large files from my SD card used on my Canon SL2 was also just really easy. So the 1080p footage editing experience with the upgraded RAM on the Mac Mini 2012 edition was well worth the $42, because now I can edit 1080p footage within Final Cut Pro without any issues at all. When it comes to exporting in Final Cut Pro, you're not going to see any award-winning times, but a 2-minute long edit of some video that I had from a recent tutorial only took about 2 minutes to export. And I want to note that this is used for 1080p editing. If you're going to try and edit 4K videos, it's probably not going to work in your favor, and scrubbing through the timeline of 4K footage probably going to hang and not be so fun to work with. But I mean, it's still doable, especially if you upgrade the RAM to 16 gigabytes, the full capacity that this 2012 Mac Mini can handle. The last thing I wanted to touch on that I actually upgraded or updated was the OS system on the Mac Mini from 2012, because the one that came with it was, I believe, the Snow Leopard OS system, and to upgrade to the newest, which is Catalina, I had to first download and install Mojave, I think that's how you say it, and then additionally install Catalina to be at the most up-to-date OS system that can be ran on a Mac. With upgrading the internal storage on the 2012 Mac Mini as well as upgrading the RAM, Catalina worked flawlessly, and I really didn't notice anything that would maybe dissuade me from upgrading to Catalina and maybe make me revert back to a earlier OS system. Everything just really worked well, and I haven't noticed anything yet. Cross your fingers, everything has just been working great. Do remember that this machine is 8 years old. An 8-year-old Mac will have some limitations in regards to maybe editing 4K video footage, and don't expect to play any video games on the 2012 Mac Mini or any Mac at that, because they just aren't good for video game experiences. But for a 2012 Mac Mini, this thing works well for 1080p video editing, and for the end users that are just going to do some web surfing, check mail, and you want to get into the Apple ecosystem without breaking the bank, I highly recommend the 2012 Mac Mini, and I have provided a link to the exact one that I received as a gift down below the video. So with a little tender love and care, blowing out the cobwebs on the 8-year-old Mac Mini, and spending about $80 on upgrades, you can bring a 2012 Mac Mini up to speed for tasks in 2020. That's going to be it today, guys. I appreciate you watching the video. If you have any questions, feel free to comment down in the comment section below, as well as check out the Decoded Discord channel, which has a ton of people that are willing and able to help you out with whatever you may need. That Discord link can be found down below the video. Thanks again for stopping in, and until the next time, happy decoding.